you know, I like to practice what I preach. So, like I said, I had significant writer's block for some reason. And so I actually did a fresh start on this sermon about 4 times. I wrote an entire sermon. I looked at it. I said, that's garbage. I threw it away. I started fresh, completely fresh, and wrote. It usually doesn't work that way. There's usually something I can salvage. No, I had to do completely fresh starts. And I've begun to believe that, like, you don't challenge the universe like the ancient Greek myths or something like that. You don't say, oh, I'm going to teach people about making a fresh start, because you will get the lesson yourself. So do be careful about these things. So anyway, I like to practice what I preach. I made a fresh start. And one of our fresh starts, we're doing a dry January. Have you heard of this? Do a dry January. Boy, did we pick the worst year for that. I mean, come on. But, I am learning. I have a whole repertoire of great vegan recipes too, because we're also like being vegetarian for some ridiculous reason. As if we didn't have enough to concern ourselves with, we decided to change our diet and not have a glass of wine with dinner. But, fresh start. I made chickpea meatballs. Oh, they were so good. Oh my gosh. So fresh start, but maybe this wasn't the January. I've only got, like 9 more days or something like that, but maybe this wasn't the year to do it. So yesterday, while I was scrambling, I was actually scrambling in the late evening. I like had dinner and then had to go back and work on my sermon. And I was like, okay, what are we going to do? Oh, I'll watch some other people's talks. Maybe that'll help. I'll watch some TED Talks. And so I found this TED Talk, and his subject was on this thing they call languishing, which I'll even put in the chat box just for fun. Languishing. Now, you may know this is what feels good when there's a good movie on Sunday afternoon, and it's February 1st and you just finished dry January, so you get to have a nice glass of wine. And what are you doing? I'm languishing. Oh, darling, come languish with me and the cats. But this is not what they mean by it. Researchers, psychologists have begun to use this for the type of fugue that some people began feeling at like the pre-vaccine point of pandemic round 2, I think it was, like surge number 2. So we're in surge number 3 or so, but variant number 3, something like that. And some of us are still feeling this languishing. What is it? Well, you're not depressed. Some of us are, but for the purpose of this sermon, you're not depressed, but you're also not flourishing, right? You're not having that sense of flow. And wow, what are we gonna do next? Because I'll tell you, you guys, let me know if this resonates with you at all, or if you're like, oh no, Fall June, buck up there, Buttercup, everything's going to be all right. But I was kind of feeling some flourishing, like in September. I'm looking at case numbers. In September when the thing was like this, I was like, yeah, let's get back in person. Let's design some sermons. This is gonna be cool. And then this Omicron thing and the languishing of like the promise of our vaccination strategies in Santa Clara, like we all knew nothing was certain, but the promise that our most optimistic minds held didn't come true. And so there's been this kind of just languish on, and it's made a resurgence in my life. And even if it hasn't in yours, this sermon is not to bum you out. It's not to say, well, you ought to be languishing, but somebody probably is. And so it's really important, I think, for us to talk about this. I'm an advocate for empathy. And what I found was that I may have been a little jumping the gun when I made the titles for my upcoming sermons. How to start fresh. And I made a springtime sermon, but it's still winter. I had a little bit too much New Year's force behind me. And so as I scrapped yet another message of hope and motivation, I finally came down to like, hey, maybe lay off the hope for a second, buddy, and maybe meet us where some of us are. So I'm sorry, but you're going to have to hear a little bit about languishing. Let's get into it, learn about it. Okay, so here from the notes. So I stay on time, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, I thought to myself, maybe there's a reason I can't seem to put together a coherent, concise, and inspiring talk about starting fresh. Maybe it's not yet the time for starting fresh, but for loving ourselves, even if we languish. Okay, make a face or an emoji if you can agree with me. This is my emoji. Loving ourselves, even if we languish. How un-American of you. Oh, you naughty commies. No, that's what came up as I was writing these notes. What an un-American thing to say. What an un-American thing to say. Loving ourselves, even if we languish. Good grief. Okay, we are a summer-philic society, right? We love fruition and the sunshine and how we're going on vacation. It's summer. We're okay with spring too, like progress and new hopes and new visions. We're not culturally, metaphorically speaking, we're not so great with like fall and winter, decay, silence, and oh, emptiness, void. Oh, these are not like how you advertise things in our, hey, do you want to experience a silent void? I mean, maybe for meditators, but still, like it, as I wrote these in my notes, it didn't sound like that was what you put in a sermon, right? And yet, that's what our sermon is about. You're just going to have to deal with it. So we're a summer-philic culture. Just saying those words, darkness, void, loss, it sounds a little awkward, like the opposite of what a sermon is supposed to sound like. But there's no avoiding these aspects of life. And specifically, as climate change rolls on and picks up steam, and culturally we're sort of languishing about taking any effective action on reversing climate change, I think maybe we should really question the mindset of progress and growth at all costs, right? So maybe there's a value to darkness and void and pausing and degrowth. There's a passage from the Tao Te Ching, sometimes called the Bible of Taoism, that has been ringing in my head lately. I think I put it on my presentation here. So let me pull that back up. I'll even screen share it for the visual people. You know, the visual types like to read things. Here we go. This is maybe one of the weirdest passages in the Tao Te Ching. Lao Tzu says, other people are contented, enjoying the sacrificial feast. In spring, some go to the park and climb the terrace, but I alone am drifting, not knowing where I am. Like a newborn babe before it learns to smile, I am alone without a place to go. Others have more than they need, but I alone have nothing. I am a fool. Oh, yes, I am confused. Others are clear and bright, but I alone am dim and weak. Others are sharp and clever, but I alone am dull and stupid. Oh, I drift like the waves of the sea, without direction, like the restless wind. Everyone else is busy, but I alone am aimless and depressed. I am different. I am nourished by the Great Mother. Okay, so kind of weird, right? I think we should read this and we should go like, huh? Because these are like the aphorisms of the great enlightened master. And the great enlightened master, what's his wisdom? He's like, well, I feel kind of aimless and depressed. I'm bummed. Everybody's stoked. They're going to go slaughter an ox and have a sacrifice and climb the terraces. And I'm just not feeling it, bro. I'm just not. This is the great master. So if you look on social media like me, you'll know I see a lot of like advertisements from life coaches and like authentic empowerment, charismatic guru types. And I just thought like, I compare like, you'll never see them using these kind of lines for advertisement, right? Oh, come take my course. I'm depressed. Hey, sign up for my 3-week series. I don't know what's going on. I made you a little image about it. Let's see if I can get it here. Here's my new advertisement. Come to my course. I am confused. So anyway, we'll see if that goes on my branding material. I don't think my branding advisors would tell me to use that. So I really love this verse because there's actually a profound wisdom in here, but it doesn't, it does this Taoist thing. It flips what we think on its head and backwards. All right, the secret is in this line about the great mother. And in case no one ever told you, let me tell you, for initiates, for Taoist and Tantric Buddhist initiates, the great mother mean not only like the earth goddess and Gaia and all that cool stuff. We know all that. That's old news if you've read your feminist theory. But she actually means the unknown, the unknown. If you think about it, the unknown, the void, the pause is the womb of everything new and fresh. And this is going to be the key to how to effectively languish. Okay, so get your cat, get your wine, turn on the Goonies, get your couch. I'm gonna teach you how to effectively languish. This is my 3-week series. Sign up. It's only $10,000. Here's my branding photo. I am confused. Effective languishing 101. Okay. So what does Lao Tzu talk about? The key is in the last line about the great mother. Great mother relates to the great mystery, the unknown. Without the great mystery, you can't have any fun surprises. This is really not the MO of post-enlightenment Western achiever philosophy, but the two don't have to be at odds. The key is not making an enemy of our confusion, depression, aimlessness, or even languishing. Okay, why am I on it about the languishing thing? Like I said, some of you may not be feeling this. You may be like, well, I've got my plans in place. We're still making money, whatever. But a lot of us at the beginning of this pandemic, we set up a bunch of like stopgap measures. We were like, well, I'll have an extra glass of wine. It's only 2 weeks. We're closing down for 2, and then we're like, well, I can have an extra glass of wine. It's only going to be this year. And after a certain, well, I'll watch a little extra TV, it makes me feel connected, even though, okay, maybe the baking sourdough bread, that one may still be useful that people do. Oh, I'll learn to knit. But some of our stopgap measures, they're no longer useful. And as we go on, like, it's just, you've hit the doldrums, right? What is that with that? Oh, there's a saying like when your boat gets, you're in becalmed waters. We've been becalmed. And we got to know how to deal with it, or we're not going to deal with it in healthy ways. We're here in limbo. There's really no going back to the way things were. And in a lot of ways, that might be a good thing. But the way things are going to be hasn't yet revealed itself. We are, like Lao Tzu says, without direction, like the aimless wind. And if this doesn't immediately resonate for you, know that someone is languishing. And we have to have good capacity for empathy for them. They're going to need it. In many ways, we're mourning the thin veneer of a world that worked, where we cared about one another and could marshal the forces it took to keep society functioning well for all of us. So today's sermon is a winter sermon. I hope you'll forgive my anti-Americanism. I think in my New Year's optimism, I jumped ahead to spring, but the key to starting fresh is to not bypass the void, the confusion, the depression, to not bypass winter. We actually have to embrace it. Okay, a quick thing on neuroplasticity. If we bypass winter, we're doomed to recreate the past. This is the way our brains work. So you may know humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, the wise monkey upright weirdos that we are, our brains are learning machines. That's like what distinguishes it. We're just learning machines. And what you may not have known is that how we learn is by creating habits. Our brain loves a shortcut. Our brain loves a shortcut. You may remember a while ago, let me see if I get my image up here. There was this trend among the Silicon Valley business bros to always wear the same outfit, right? Steve Jobs was famous for this. The research says it may not work the way they thought it was supposed to work, but they would always wear the same outfit with the idea that it would free up energy of deciding what am I going to wear today, all that energy could be put into creativity and like brainstorming. It's like one less decision to be made. Always going to have the same outfit. I'm going to have the same breakfast, and while that doesn't necessarily hold true in the research, it does point out a bit about how our brains work. Our brains want to make as much as we can unconscious so that we can be open to the new. Anything we can automate allows us to free up that much more attention and energy for what's fresh. Paradoxically, though, the way this has tended to work for a lot of us is that we then get a bit locked in these automated cycles. The plasticity of our brain means we mold it into a certain shape, but after a good 30, 40, 50 years, the brain wants to keep that shape. Here's the punchline for today. When you try to change the brain, when you try to change, like they say, one of the ways to stave off cognitive decline is you have to learn new things, but not just any learned things. They have to be new things that are like totally weird to you. If you're a math genius, you have to go learn to play the piano. If you're like an anti-math piano player, you have to go learn to play chess, like with equations or something like that. Like just doing Wordle, if you've been doing Scrabble all your life, that's not protective. It's the part where you're like, okay, there's your mantra. The mantra of languishing and brain growth. How to turn your languishing into brain growth. 6 times a day, you should find yourself going, and the thing to know is that means your brain is growing. That's what neuroplasticity feels like from the inside. Aimless, confused, in the becalmed sea, depressed with nowhere to go, like Lao Tzu. I'm different. Why is everybody stoked? I'm a bit depressed. I'm the great master. I'm confused. Sign up for my course on mysticism. That's what it feels like to be growing a new brain. To actually be starting fresh is not what I've been sold on Instagram, that it's going to feel like amazing and insightful all the time. That's likely means that you're doing the same stuff you've done before. It feels at home. It feels natural. To do something new feels like you're turning a big boat in the ocean, and it's going to take a while for you to see any progress. You're used to this progress, and now like, is there any progress there? Is anything happening? And it feels like languishing. Okay, I learned a meditation technique, back to a little bit of honoring our good friend Thich Nhat Hanh. I learned a meditation technique once upon a time that was called taking confusion onto the path. And if you don't know about a lot of these non-dual traditions, they are about integrating all of our experiences, having an open heart to our depression, to our confusion, to our anger, as well as when we feel manically blissful and like we know what's going on and like we're in charge, opening our heart to all of it. So taking confusion on the path, it was revolutionary when I learned this like 15 years ago or something like that. And the teacher, he said, when you feel confused, the only thing that's a problem about that is that you think you should know. If you take away the idea that you should know, there's nothing wrong with the sense of being confused. There's nothing wrong with not knowing. And we've all experienced this freshness of these meditation masters, because that feels like curiosity. When you take away the idea that you're supposed to know something, confusion turns into curiosity. So we've got this. We can befriend the void, the unknown, the mystery, the becalmed sea, because right on the other side of it is curiosity. The great Buddhist masters say, don't know mind is very close to Buddha mind. It could be like a restful sleep. You don't know anything when you're asleep. You're not the boss of anything when you're taking a nap, but we don't complain, oh, I took a nap and I didn't know what was going on. No, we go, oh man, how was your nap? Oh, I was out. I was gone, baby. I didn't know anything that was going on. What if we treated our inner soul winter like that? Hey, man, do you know what you're doing? No, so restful. I'm just right here, right now, in the void, baby. Okay, now I got some marketing material. I bet I could sell a class on that. Let's wrap it up, shall we? This is not an encouragement to languish necessarily, although I did just tell you to get a glass of wine and a cat, or a glass of kombucha. Doesn't have to be particular substances. We've been through a lot together. It's not an encouragement to languish, but to love the languisher. We've been through a lot together. It makes sense that some of us are not right now in a state of flow or flourishing. One of the great mysteries of this life is that you'll find flow much sooner if you stop trying so hard. If we can navigate our way beyond being swamped by languishing on one hand or judging ourselves for it on the other hand, we might find ourselves in the true void, which is the present moment. Then we are able to create something new. We're not rushing to skip past winter and bring about summer as quickly as possible. We're grounded in the present moment. We've moved from the discomfort of confusion to the open experience of just not knowing. And not knowing is a blessing, because when we don't know, then we can discover, we can learn, we can explore, and we can even create something brand new. It took a lot of pains to delete the 4 versions of this talk that came before, because they all sounded like something I said before. And I wanted to practice what I preach. I wanted to start afresh. I know we need the repetition, but I thought that at least for the Start Fresh sermon, I should really try to do something new. So you've already heard, probably most of you, everything I have to say about motivation and staying the course and dealing with setbacks. But if there's one thing I can share with you today, it is the power of our confusion, the blessing of our depression, and the gift of our aimlessness. If you're feeling these things, don't immediately assume there's something wrong with you. It could be the longing to bring to birth something that is truly fresh and new. You can reframe this state with the understanding that confusion is what it feels like when we're changing the very structure of our brains. This confusion is enhancing me. So here in Nevada County, we've had a streak of warm weather, and I've welcomed it pretty much after the chaos that ate my Christmas vacation. That would be a good name for a children's story I could write. The chaos, the winter storm chaos that ate my Christmas vacation. I felt, hey, a little warm weather, no problem. But the other night, my partner Maria was saying to me, do you think we'll get a little more cold before the springtime? I really miss when we were making a fire every night because the power was out. I think we should take a lesson from my very wise wife. Like my wise partner, I pray that you can embrace the winter of our spirits, not because it's pleasurable, but because we can make good use of it to attune to the Great Mother, the open space of the unknown from which we can envision something none of us have ever seen before.